How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sunday, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Yes, I'm back in studio. And yes, Mike, in fact, will be back joining us here today. And we got a lot to talk about. It is Friday here on this show. Mike has recovered from his illness. Well, I don't know if he's recovered, but he's recovered enough to do the show today. And so it's time to talk about stuff we didn't talk about the last couple of days. We haven't even reviewed Dynamite. We'll talk about Dynamite here on the show today. We've got a lineup for tonight's SmackDown. They have just added a championship celebration with Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, and the return of Shinsuke Nakamura as well. So we'll go over all of that. And then, yes, the news. Dynamite ratings from Wednesday night. Update on Mickie James, who had until yesterday to get cleared, which is noted on, I think it would have been Tuesday's show when Lance co-hosted. This was a legitimate deal where they were doing a storyline where if she got cleared by Thursday, she would be able to compete this weekend at the Rebellion pay-per-view. And if she could not get cleared, she was going to have to vacate the title. And it was legitimate. They did not know if she was going to get cleared or not. And what happened is she did not get cleared. So we'll give you an update on her status. We've got changes to the King of the Ring pay-per-view. Matt Hardy talks about Jeff Hardy, who, of course, returned on Wednesday. And in the final segment of the show, Aaron Stevens of the NWA is going to join us today. Talk a number of different topics, so that's going to be a lot of fun. It's a Friday show, everybody. You know what that means. And if you'd like to text us, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. Brian at WrestlingObserver.com. At Bryan Alvarez on Twitter. A lot to get into after the break. Observer Live.
It's definitely something I will remember for the rest of my life. Just like hearing that 1, 2, 3, the bell and like the fans going crazy. Like it was like a dream. Like it was an amazing feeling. Like I've never performed in front of a crowd that was that energetic and had that many people in the stadium. So it was really cool. And yeah, I was just really happy that like people were behind me, like because nobody knew who I was. And yeah, just to have the fans have my back like they did that night, it was very special because it doesn't happen very often, moments like that. So I was cool to like be the guy in that situation.
What was your reaction when they told you, like, hey, this is what's going to go down? You're going to go out there and you're going to have a match with Jericho on this big show. And then on top of that, you're going to be the one to go over. Like, what were you thinking? What was your reaction to that? And what was your like moment before you went out onto the actual, to do the actual matchup?
Yeah, it was a lot because I really didn't think that that's what I was going to be doing that day. Like I just randomly got like called to like be there, but like I figured it'd be for some reason because like they were flying me out. Like any other time I've been to AEW, it's been like fairly local to me, and this was in Texas, which wasn't at all. And yeah, when they told me, I really couldn't believe it. It felt too good to be true. Like I was very like grateful to like first find out that I was gonna be wrestling Chris Jericho. Like that's a huge thing itself. And then when I found out I was going over, it really didn't like, it really felt too good to be true. And like a lot of things were just going on in my head. I started getting like a little bit of like nerves, but excitement and just, wanting to tell everybody, but I couldn't. And yeah, it was just, I just took some time to myself after, got all my nerves out, like told myself this is happening. Like we're gonna go out there, we're gonna do this, we're gonna crush it. Like you're here for a reason, you're in this situation for a reason. And yeah, just went out there and whew, I get like fired up just thinking about that night right now. It was yeah, me and Chris, we made magic happen out there and we made a very, very special moment. And like he's the one that, made it for me.
What feedback did you get after that match, and what feedback have you been getting, because you've really been thrusted into the spotlight in AEW, and you're now one of the guys that would definitely consider a rising star. So for you, like, what has the feedback been like from either Jericho, Tony Khan, or anybody else in AEW?
Um one of the biggest things I've honestly been told is to enjoy everything that's going on. Like that, like I've been told that a lot. Like, don't take any of this for granted right now. Like, don't get too caught up in all the other, stuff that comes with this. Like, just have fun and enjoy what's going on.
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Yes, Mike's back. What's going on, dude?
Summer colds and sickness are the absolute worst. The dirt worst. So I had bronchial issues and sinusitis, which, wouldn't be so bad except for the doctor wanted me to take Mucinex, Guaifesin, or whatever it's called, to flush everything out of my lungs. The problem with that is then it all went into my sinuses, which were hurting a little bit. Felt like two knives shoved between my eyes.
What a quack.
And dizziness. But some of this stuff is now expelling out of my lungs, and I woke up about 1 o'clock today and didn't feel worse, so I decided I'll do the show with you today because I know you've been lonely.
I didn't even do the show yesterday.
I know, I heard.
I'll tell you what I'm
traveling.
not. I'll tell you what I'm not. Lonely.
Are you not lonely?
There's nothing better than being alone, as opposed to being here surrounded by... Listen, I'm this close on the chat. The day has not even started. I'm this close on the chat, okay? So I want to thank all of our moderators. I'm hoping that they have the finger on the trigger. Get rid of them. I don't want to hear it.
I'd say what's going on, but you know what? You know more than I do.
There's nothing worse in wrestling than this whole CM Punk thing. There's just absolutely nothing worse. It's like, it is to the point now where nobody wants to actually look at anything except what side are you on. And then I have to hear about what side I'm on, even though what I'm trying to do here is just tell you what's going on. And some of that's led to me being on a side or whatever. And then I got people trying to pick fights with me. Like, I never did anything. I don't want to hear about it. If I have to hear one more thing out of Dax, and I will call him out right here, Dax. If I have to hear one more thing on his podcast about me, because you know what? You can go back. I'll pull $1,000 out of the bank right now. You can go back and you can listen to every show that I've ever done, okay? I want you to find one time that I have been overly critical of FTR as a tag team. I have done nothing but put over FTR matches. I have done nothing but talk about what a great tag team FTR is over and over and over again. In the Observer Awards, hey, who do you think's tag team of the year? It's FTR. I said it should be FTR before the awards. I said it should be FTR after the awards. Now, at some point, how this became, I have an issue with FTR, how I prefer the Young Bucks over FTR. I don't even know where that came from. I've never been anything but complimentary about FTR. And then I heard another one the other day. Something about how I said that Dax was a horrible person. I got $1,000. If you can find one time ever on this show that I ever said that Dax Harwood was a horrible person, $1,000. You're never going to find it. I have never once said anything about Dax being a horrible person. What I did was I reported that there was heat on Dax. I reported that there was heat on CM Punk. What do you want me to do? That's what happened. And then apparently he got really mad because, I don't even know what story it was, like CM Punk's Instagram post or something like that. And I said, a lot of people are really upset about this. And so then it was like, he said, I know for a fact who told Bryan that. I know, and I don't know if he said my name, but he goes, I know for a fact where that came from. Because he said apparently some guy went into the locker room and was telling everybody else, I can't believe he posted that or whatever. Bro, you want to know why I said there was heat on CM Punk, and you want to know why I said there was heat on, I don't even know what the last one was about FTR posting or saying something on the podcast. It's not because one guy told me anything, okay? It's because all I heard for, you know, that CM Punk Instagram post, my day was just like for hours. Text, DM, call, text. Not the same guy. One person after another. So I said, you know what? A lot of people not happy about that. Where suddenly that became, oh, it's one guy. It wasn't one guy. This is right back to what started this whole all-out thing. Oh, you know, the Young Bucks must have told Dave and Bryan something. Yeah, well, you know what? They didn't. And we're back to the exact same thing. Why does everybody think they know who tells me what? Why? Because you heard one guy in a locker room say one thing? So what? Why does that mean that for sure, I guarantee, I promise, I don't even know the word he used. Like, leave me alone. I'm telling people what's going on. I have no issue. But the thing is here, this is my theory, okay? My theory is that for some reason, they're trying to get people to believe that I have an issue with them, so that maybe when something happens, I'll, hey, you know,
say they,
I don't want to.
When you
I don't want
they,
to talk
do
about
you
it
mean
today.
Dax and FTR.
Well, it's mostly Dax. I never hear anything from Cash. It's Dax over and over again. I think he's trying to create in the minds of fans this idea that I don't like them, and I don't know why, because I've never been anything but complimentary. But the funny thing is, the more he goes on with this, he doesn't like me, and he's got a problem with me, and this is like, I'm having a problem with this now, which I never had before. What do I have to do with anything? What do I have to do with any of this? You know, I'm also upset that I have to hear, oh, you know, it's Bryan and Dave's fault that this happened, or this No, you know what? It's not my fault. Anything that's happened that's caused an issue isn't my fault. If you did an Instagram post and then I reported on it and then there was heat or you got mad or somebody, that's not my fault. I didn't write the Instagram post. I didn't punch anybody in the locker room. I didn't get in a fight. I didn't do any of that. If you're upset that something happened that I reported or Dave reported, you know what the problem is? The problem is the fact that it happened. That's the problem. So I'm about done with it. And I'm about done with hearing that it's my fault. I don't like this guy. I'm picking sides. Dude, I'm just telling people what happened. That's it. I'm not picking sides. I'm not trying to start a fight. For weeks now, I've been having to hear this, and I've been trying to just stay out of it. I'm just not talk about it. And after a while, it was like, you know what? I'm not talking about a lot that I should be talking about. And I'm going to tell everybody what's going on that I know. And I don't want to hear about, oh, Bryan this, Bryan that, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Irritated. Then I have to hear it from fans. Oh, Bryan this, Bryan that.
You're going to stay irritated because, unfortunately, it's not going away. Or maybe fortunately, depending on how you look at things, because it looks like CM Punk is going to be back. And Tony Khan does want to figure out a way to get him back. And apparently, if rumors are true, there's a working plan to move heaven and earth and actually have split rosters to try to facilitate him coming back.
Yeah, you know, it sounds like things are going along real great. If you have a situation where there's two sides that have such an issue with each other that you have to put them on different shows, do you not see that there's a problem here? That doesn't involve me, by the way. Doesn't involve me. That's an issue. There's a big issue here.
I think there's a silent amount of people. I don't want to say they're a majority, but I bet you there's a lot of people, because there's a lot of just fans who go, I want to see Punk back because I don't care about all this other stuff that you're talking about. I want to see as many stars as on my TV as possible. There's also a silent group that is probably hoping that you take the Bucks and CM Punk and Larry and anybody else who's been involved in any of this stuff, and the earth can open up and just devour all of them, and they can all go away, and then we can be a lot happier.
Back in a moment with more Observer Live.
So let's get right into it. Now, I know you said you're not a fan of school, but what is your favorite subject in school?
So definitely this year I take psychology 101, and it's been my favorite class this year. We're on like a serial killer unit right now, and I'm having like a great time. It's actually something I'm super interested in.
Okay, question number two. Favorite place to hang out when you're not wrestling?
My best friend's house. She has like a trampoline and a pool in her backyard, and I've been friends with her since middle school. So whenever I get to see her over the weekends, and like whenever I'm not all over the place, I love just going over to her house and hanging out.
Question number three. A match or opponent you've learned most from?
Ooh, that's hard. I will say, like, very early on in my career, the person I probably learned most from was Kylie Ray. I had a match with her when I was a little over a year in, and she honestly helped me out so much so early on in my career. So I'm going to give it to her.
Question number four. What's something aside from wrestling that you're a big fan of? And I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I guess if there's anything else.
I'm a big video game person, and I mostly focus on like first shooter games. So I love Call of Duty. I like Splitgate. I like Overwatch. So that's more like my second love. Whenever I'm not wrestling, I can play video games and have fun. I joke that like when I'm not wrestling, it helps me get like my violent tendencies out. I was like definitely becoming a wrestler, and whenever you have a weekend off and you're like, oh my God, I have all this pent up like energy. What's going on? I feel frustrated. And my mom jokes, like, I get all grumpy when I don't get to wrestle. She was like, you need to get something out where it's like it builds up in you. And I don't know what it is.
Question number five. Favorite way to spend your time traveling?
Ooh, honestly, I love just hopping on a plane and just falling asleep. If I could sleep on the plane like every single time, I would be a happy soul. But there's like sometimes I'll get squished right in the middle, and I'm like, this is the worst. I can't do anything here. Rough sometimes in the car too. I will say like I joke that the traveling beats up my body more than the wrestling sometimes, because like trying to sleep in the car and I will wake up and my neck's just sore. I'm like, what happened?
That whole first segment, and now I have to actually talk about this story. God. From the front page of WrestlingObserver.com, which is from The Observer this week.
Now you're going to be sick for the next week.
By the way, I don't write The Observer. If CM Punk is to return to AEW, the working idea has been to use split crews that would tie into a rumored new Saturday night show with the former AEW World Champion as a featured star. Dave Meltzer said no deal has been finalized for the show, nor the potential Turner Network the show would be on. The original idea was a 2-hour show, quote, with equal the star power of Dynamite. As of now, there is a lone Saturday, July 8th date for a televised event in Regina, Canada, with a start time of 7 Eastern. Meltzer noted there would be cases like pay-per-views or special one-off events like AEW All In at London's Wembley, in which the split crew would not work for obvious reasons, unless you have a separate building. News has intensified this week of a potential Punk return, around the time AEW returns to Chicago in late June for the Forbidden Door Go-Home edition of Dynamite. Meltzer noted Punk's return is considered, quote, a tenuous situation because the dressing room issues involving him have not been settled at all at press time. Of course, we had the story of the all-out brawl, including Punk, Ace Steel, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks in September. Punk has not appeared on AEW programming since that event, has been rehabbing a torn tricep suffered that night against Jon Moxley. According to a Friday Fightful report, Punk would like to work with the Elite and has pushed for a meeting with them for some time. A meeting with Punk and Chris Jericho is also supposed to... You know, I'm like, dude, I've been trying so hard. But listen. There was a all-out press deal. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, right?
Okay.
CM Punk went in, and he just cut a promo on everybody. He was angry and he was furious.
8 muffins.
He goes back to his locker room. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega get the head of legal to go talk to CM Punk. And CM Punk punches Matt Jackson and a brawl breaks out. Okay? Am I wrong about any of this? Nobody has disputed that course of events. Nobody. Okay? Now, if you want to talk about whatever happened and Larry and whatever, I don't know. But nobody has disputed that what happened was Punk went to his locker room, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Miga went to the locker room, the head of legal, and then CM Punk punched Matt Jackson and a fight broke out. Okay? CM Punk punched Matt Jackson. That's how this whole thing started. All right? Now, don't do this whole thing. Yeah, well, you know, before that, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I got kids, okay? If one of my kids punches another one of my kids, and then the kid that punched the first kid goes, yeah, well, so-and-so, you know, took my dinosaur. You don't punch them, right?
It's not
Am I wrong here?
This.
Okay, so if CM Punk wants to work with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, fine, okay? But am I wrong about this? You probably shouldn't have punched him. Am I wrong? Correct me when I'm wrong, okay?
Well,
if you want to work with them, you probably shouldn't have punched him.
Well, if you felt threatened, then yes, but that is yes. Do you punch somebody in a professional environment with the head of legal right there without any reason? No, you shouldn't do that.
Okay. So if you want to work with them, you know, the problem probably them not wanting to work with you probably started when you punched them. Okay?
Probably.
Fact. Yeah. That's a fact. So now, okay, fine, whatever. All right? Maybe they've forgiven you. Right? Maybe they forgave you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's wrestling.
All right. So if you want to work with them and you keep trying to have a meeting, because that's been reported, right? He's been trying to speak to him for a while. It hasn't happened. What does that tell you?
Tells me, Brian, that the guy in charge of this whole thing may want to reconsider, may want to put his foot down and take a different course of action. Because
well, hold on, we'll get to that in a second.
There are a lot of people then when this spirals out that, you know, go ahead.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but like my question. If someone punched you, Mike, okay. Well, I can't say you. We'll just say, somebody else. If your son Avery, okay, if a kid at school punched Avery, okay, and then the kid wants to like go play with Avery, but like every time he calls, Avery doesn't want to talk to him. What does that tell you?
Avery's still pretty pissed.
That's what it tells me.
Yeah.
That's what it tells me.
Yes,
okay? Because
there are true emotions and feelings and real life feelings that happen at any workplace, even in wrestling. Yes. It's not all about money. We make money more than friends. It's all about putting the dollar over this or that. Not everybody is wired that way.
So my point is, like, that's nice that he wants to work with them.
No.
but it appears that they don't want to work with him. Right? So now is this going to be like, broken down and Brian's fault? No, I'm just that's it, right?
Well, see, you've been
That's it.
You've been saved by this because they don't have to work with him. Chris Jericho's going to jump in and work with him since he was never going to work with him, and now he's
well.
going to
Hold
work
on a
with him,
second.
so.
Hold on. Let's not. We don't know what this Punk Jericho meeting is about. Okay, it could be that Jericho wants to work with CM Punk, but if you recall that Instagram post that CM Punk posted, he said that. I don't have it in front of me, but it was like, Dave Meltzer's a liar. Chris Jericho. What did he say about Chris Jericho?
Stooge.
I think he called him a stooge or something like that.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know what the meeting is about. I have no idea. But it seems to me that the likelihood would be that he would like to talk to CM Punk about why he did an Instagram post and called him a stooge. Right?
Well, yeah, but I think Jericho would know the answer because Punk's going to look at him and go, because I think you're a stooge. Now, whether they can work those things out between themselves, we don't know. Those are two huge personalities. They are very self-aware of who they are. I don't look, this whole thing to me, again, if you're just a fan, and there are people, and I know they're mostly not listening to this show, but the average fan doesn't care about any of this stuff. They want everybody else on. But there is a real life. Every time you pull back something, it's pulling back something else, whether it be Hangman or, again, everybody and their friends and how they feel about things. I don't know. I can't see this working. I don't know why CM Punk would want to go back there unless he really needs the money, because I would take a release and do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to go work somewhere, I would go work somewhere. It wouldn't be about the money. It would be because I wanted to wrestle. So he doesn't have to be there to wrestle. If it's about a paycheck, that's a different story. If it's about the wrestling, he can go anywhere. When it comes to, again, a lot of the Young Bucks, right? I wouldn't want to work with him either, considering what had happened if you're Kenny Omega or if you're the Young Bucks. So if you're anybody else that's there, I feel for them, the ones that are in the middle who are just throwing their hands up, who don't want to deal with any of this nonsense, and who, frankly, many of them, or at least some of them, I can tell you for sure, were pretty much exasperated after the last round of everything. So to come back with this, I don't see how this is going to work. I don't see how this is not going to be just a constant tabloid-esque, he said, she said. It's like high school there anyway. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but it feels like high school there a lot of the time. And now we're just going to have more of that with grown adults put on display for everybody. And what should matter, which is what's taking place in the ring and trying to build up a lot of the stuff with that company from a wrestling point of view, from the on-screen point of view. Again, we saw what happened the last time and where things went creatively after that and the cluster that happened. And granted, there were injuries and other things. But, that's really, at the end of the day, as a fan, all I kind of care about. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the case because we're going to be talking about this probably until the next time.
Dynamite, 866,000 viewers, 18 to 49, 6th on cable, 0.28, down 6.7% from last week. Ties the lowest rating for the show since March 15th. NBA play-in tournament games took the top two spots, 1.13, 18 to 49, and a 0.79. And All Access did 281,000 viewers, 51st on cable, with a 0.08 rating, the lowest numbers that All Access has done. I watched this show. It was just kind of a show this week. I mean, there was nothing, a lot on it was mostly Full Gear and the Young Bucks coming back for their first match since the Mystery, which they do not mention in any way. They don't even say suspension. They're just back, and they were concerned that they would not be good or would get booed. And neither happened. And then the Britt Baker-Saraya match, which that was pretty much the focus of that episode. And, there you go. Mickie James relinquished the Impact title due to several injuries that have kept her out of action for more than a month. In a show-closing promo in an empty arena Thursday, She delivered a promo where she said she had to do what's right for the business, the locker room, and for the title. She thanked the viewers for the last rodeo that brought her to the title, said she is not cleared to compete at Rebellion. She said, Deanna Jordan, it's your time now. She put the title and her cowboy hat in the ring and left.
I didn't like that.
Well, the impression I've been giving is that she is not retiring, even though a lot of people that watched it kind of got that impression.
They weren't boots. That's the thing that, like, I held out a little bit of hope for. But laying down that hat and walking away like that, no. We still need Mickie James in pro wrestling.
All right, back in a moment. Aaron Stevens joining us. We've got a lot to talk about there. Hopefully nothing to do with anything else we talk about on this show. Back in a moment, Observer Live.
Question number 6. What is your favorite movie?
Ooh, Heather's actually, which is like an older
Winona
movie.
Ryder, right? Yes.
Yes, I love that movie, and everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say it. They're like, "You're young. Why do you know about Heather's?" And I was like, "I don't know. Somebody showed it to me one day, and I fell in love."
I was going to tell you, I wasn't expecting that answer, but I was so thankful that I knew the movie you were talking about. But yeah, no, it's a good movie. I really like it. Question number 7. What's your favorite social media app?
Definitely Instagram. Instagram has always been one of my favorites. I feel like I just recently figured out like Twitter and had more fun with Twitter. And I've never been a fan of Facebook. I try, but it's like, I don't like this.
Question number 8. Do you have a pet?
I do. I actually have a dog and I had Thumper. But recently Thumper has gone to the Bum Bum Brigade just because of my crazy schedule. I loved him the most and I just wanted him to have a good home. And he was still free roam, enjoying everything at the house and played with the dogs, but I was never home to like take care of him, make sure he was okay. I was like, my schedule's just getting more and more insane. And I was like, I just don't want to leave him alone where he's just unhappy and doesn't have anybody.
Question number 9. What animal is your spirit animal?
Ooh, definitely like a red panda. I
Ooh.
think they're cute, adorable, but definitely very mean.
I love that. That's perfect. That's great. Question number 10. Last one. What do you want your fans to know about you?
Genuinely how much I care about wrestling. And I feel like it's hard for me to show it sometimes, but I hope they can see through my matches. Like at the end of the day, all I want to do is just put on a good show for everybody and for them to leave and go home happy. Honestly, just having some of the best matches in the world and having fun with wrestling still. I want to make this my career and I wanted to make my living and I don't want to do anything else but pro wrestling. So in 5 years, I hope I'm still in the ring just having fun.
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Very happy today to be joined by Aaron Stevens. Talk some pro wrestling here. Some NWA, Crockett Cup, some acting, and more. And Aaron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brian? Thank you for having me. I'm, like I said, big fan of everything you do, so really appreciate you having me on.
Well, I really appreciate it. So what's been going on lately? Bring us up to speed.
Well, no, there's just been kind of a resurgence in my pro wrestling career over the last, actually, a year and a half, 2 years, which is weird. I never saw myself in pro wrestling. And it's funny because, when I had left wrestling, I said I'm going to try the acting world, and I had some success. I got to do some network shows and some cable shows and some movies and everything. But then recently got on the show Heels, which is a show about pro wrestling. So that was a great kind of mashing of the two worlds. And of course, everything going on with NWA now, it's just crazy because it's I don't know, it's just like a really interesting time in my life, and it's a fun time in my life because for the first time, like I'm enjoying pro wrestling again, and I have NWA to thank for that.
It looks like you're going to be going on a little bit of a tour here to Australia with the whole world as a vampire deal that's going on, and that also took you to Mexico. Was that the first time that you had actually wrestled in Mexico when it came to the AAA NWA World as a Vampire show?
No, I had been in Mexico several times with WWE before, so this was my first time like outside of WWE, and we were in Mexico City. That was last month, and man, what a great time we had! It was just an amazing time. I mean, the only thing I have to say is don't ever squirt a lime on a taco down there because you will pay the price. But other than that, the crowd was just amazing. Food was amazing, and just the fans were incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it's funny because with WWE, when we go internationally, we have some opportunities to kind of interact with fans and everything, but we had more opportunity, and like it was just a little more leeway where we got to actually kind of have conversations with them. It wasn't like they were in a line and just autograph picture and push them through. So I enjoyed that, and one of my favorite things to do was actually talking to the fans and to see what they like about pro wrestling, like what attracts them to the sport. Why do they watch? Why do they not only invest their money, but the commodity that, in my opinion, is more important than money and more valuable is their time. And so that's always a good deal. And the Australia tour is going on right now, and I am not on that Australia tour because I do not like long plane rides.
Now, I gotta look. There's so much wrestling to talk about, but you mentioned something right there that could save a life for a traveler who does go down to Mexico.
Oh.
Why do you not squeeze the lime on the taco? Is it like the lime on the beer, where it's meant to keep the bugs away and not actually meant to go into the food?
That I'm not sure of, but I just know that I don't think my stomach necessarily agrees with the vegetation and the produce down there.
I
Yeah.
understand.
But the tacos were, off the chain. Oh my God. They had a station where there was just this big, I think it was pork or something. And they were shaving it off and making the tacos right there. It was just incredible. Everyone, they took care of us from the time we landed till the time we left. And I just love Mexico.
Now, you had mentioned something earlier where, you talked about being back in pro wrestling and said something like, would you say kind of surprising because you never...
pictured yourself?
Yeah. What did you say?
Yeah, when I was done, especially, with WWE the last year or so there, I had just become, and I'll say, I'll say sour to the business. Because, again, I've been in wrestling since I was 16. It's the only job I ever had. And it just, it can become a grind like anything else. But when you you take away everything that makes it awesome. And, one of the things, right? Like, I'm not going to be one of these people that say, oh, they should have given me this and they didn't, or this should have happened, it didn't. And ultimately it's Vince McMahon's sandbox. We're all just playing in it. But I just thought, based upon, the years I was there, like the fan response, merchandise sales, and how I was able to, produce, work with anybody, being put in segments that I didn't necessarily want to be in, but having to make the most of them and just trying to be a model employee, not failing drug tests, always talking well about the company, which I still do, by the way, because I'm not going to bury WWE because they gave me a large portion of everything I have today. And have it not been for WWE, I don't think I would have had the opportunities I would have had in kind of the world of film and television. So, it was just at the time with the lack of creativity that I was getting, I just said, you know what, I think I'm done. And I had mentally kind of just resigned any aspect of doing anything in pro wrestling again. And I was actually in Hawaii filming an episode of Magnum PI. thinking like, oh, well, this is great. I'm getting my acting career going. And Billy Corgan called me and said, hey, we're doing some NWA TV tapings in Georgia. And I was like, congratulations. And but it was, no, just you can come. Yeah, all right, whatever. And then when I walked in the Georgia studio the first time and I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Like, let's see where this goes. Because it was just that traditional, like old school, like the Georgia Championship Wrestling with the interview desk and the way the ring looked. And it was just a really, really cool thing. And it was kind of like everything I had loved about wrestling or, wrestling. And I think we know what I'm talking about. Like it's the very traditional North American pro wrestling, right? Like television wrestling. So I said, hey, let's see what we got, and just kind of one thing led to another, and I'm really, really glad, and I'm really, really blessed to be a part of the NWA, because it has been, healing, cathartic in so many different ways for me on so many different levels, and it's just it's a company that's growing, and as we're finding out like who we are, we're putting out a product that, whoever, and everyone has an opinion, right? So it's an alternative. It's different. And we get, the vast majority of us anyways, get where the company should be. And that starts from the top down. And, from Billy's vision, and then Pat Caney, who is his head of talent relations, who has been phenomenal in terms of, parlaying, the directions and the creative and the, just all like the day-to-day stuff from Billy to the talent. It's just the right people seem to be in place, and that really is everything. It's who you're surrounded with, who you're working with, and really I can say like a lot of my closest friends are in the NWA.
A lot of wrestlers, especially back in the day, they would leave a company, and then they didn't want to hear that people said that they were bitter. Like it was like a 4-letter word, bitter. Oh, he's bitter. But I was kind of was like, it's okay to be bitter. Like if you really feel that you performed at a level and they didn't see it and it didn't work out for you and you ended up not there anymore. I mean, it's okay to be bitter about that. But what I think is cool about wrestling nowadays is, there was a period where if you were at a WWF or WCW, I mean, it's like there was nothing. I mean, you could try and go overseas or whatever, but it was 2000, early 2000s, the indie scene. But nowadays, it's like there's so many different companies. There's so many different styles of wrestling. There's so many places you can go where, yeah, you'd make the most money in WWE. But if that's not in the cards right now, I mean, there are other places where you can work and you can make money and you can be under contract and you can work the kind of wrestling that you want to work. I mean, there's opportunities out there that there weren't before.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. What a great time to be in wrestling.
Go ahead, Mike.
When it comes to, 2019, when everything kind of kicked off, the NWA Power Show really was a must-see show, because you were seeing guys like you who people wanted to see, who had left WWE or left other promotions, and people wanted to see them, and they got a chance to. They were able to develop people like Ricky Starkz, give Eddie Kingston a megaphone. Eli Drake, obviously, is another one, LA Knight. Things, because changes happen, time moves on. There have been some, peaks and valleys for the NWA since then. And a lot of the attention, Billy Corgan talked about it only last week, a lot of the attention sometimes is focused too much upon him personally or Tyrus personally. Can you kind of cut through some of that and talk to the wrestling fan as to why, with all of these other options out there, the NWA is something to get back on and is a place that you need to have your interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think, okay, so traditionally, since kind of the inception of television, pro wrestling has been there. The first two programs on TV, you had the news and you had wrestling. Wrestling was easy to produce. You just stick a camera in the arena. You have your drama. You have your action. It was kind of like all this stuff wrapped into one. And traditionally, that model has sustained the wrestling business throughout television. And nowadays, and because to me, right, like one of the things I cannot stand is people that used to do this saying, "Oh, well, nobody does this nowadays. Nobody sells. Back in my day, we were better." No. First and foremost, as society evolves, so should any form of entertainment, if that form of entertainment wishes to still exist. So we have, again, there's a difference in styles, right? Like a lot of the wrestlers are smaller nowadays. A lot of the action, it's high flying and athletically. I mean, I don't think I don't think I know. There has never been a time in wrestling where the level of athleticism and acrobatics has been higher than it is now. Absolutely incredible. The thing is, in my opinion, there's not a lot of focus on personalities and character. Like even with WWE, the WWE name sells, and you really don't have those super strong, defined personalities that people are necessarily paying money to see. You paid to see Hulk Hogan. You paid to see Steve Austin. You paid to see The Rock. You paid to see Goldberg. You paid to see Ric Flair. Nowadays, it's more just like, I think, go out there and create content. And I think in AEW, there's obviously that super athletic style, and it's great. But then at what point are we going to invest in the character? Because I always judge matches when someone comes through the curtain, okay, what kind of a response do they get? But at the end of the match, whatever the finish is, are they cheering for the move? Are they cheering for the person? Or are they cheering for the outcome, the emotional outcome that match was designed to have? And I think a perfect example of that, it was a couple months ago, was when Jeff Jarrett, and I don't watch regularly, but I happened to catch, it was a tag match involving Jeff. And if you watch the crowd throughout that whole match, right, you didn't necessarily see all of the moonsaults and flips. I mean, there was, to a degree, there was action, but it wasn't like in some of the other matches. But if you look at the crowd, they were on the edge of their seat. They were cheering. They were screaming because Jeff had sucked them in, got their attention, and was taking them on that emotional roller coaster ride that I believe pro wrestling should be. And that is essentially the style that in the NWA, that's the kind of product we would like to put out. Now, with Billy, yes, the man's one of the biggest rock stars ever. So that's going to garner attention. And I believe that's a good thing, because if we can get people's attention, it's up to us, the talent, to keep their attention, right? Like I didn't want to be...
well, actually, hold that thought 1 second, because we had to head to a break. But we'll be back to pick it up after the break. Observer Live.
We were working together at NWA. We were working together in so many different places, and people think that we've been tagging for years, and we've only been tagging 2, I guess, right? November 2020 was our first
a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years, but during quarantine, everyone's sitting at home. We're kind of trying to figure out what's next. When things reopen, when shows start back up again, what are we going to do? And we decided, why not do things on our own terms? That's the one thing people are going to have to learn about the Hex, is we do things when we want and how we want to do them. And so we one day just started spitballing stuff back and forth. We were able to use social media, during 2020 to start getting these opportunities and people being like, oh, what's going on? It's crazy because we did it all on our own. I think that we did this without a contract in any company. We did this, reaching out to, and that's another thing that's really cool too, is that we can pull from each other's contacts. AK is going to reach out to this company in England. All right, cool. I'm going to reach out to this one in Spain. Like, we're just going to keep working together. And that's like that's the craziest thing, is that we did this completely on our own, just betting on ourselves and being like, we're going to go over to the UK. We're going to do all these fucking amazing matches there. We're going to come back and kill it here in the US. And we're just going to keep going. And to me, that is like, what is the craziest to me? Like, I don't care how high I've gotten by myself, whatever. Like, to me, doing it as a team, and there are so many freaking amazing tag teams in the world, period. But to be in the top 10 and being the only women in the top 10
in the US,
not gonna lie, in the US, not gonna lie, like, felt really fucking good.
Well, a lot of people do ask us why we're called the Hex. And while James Mitchell may be using us to put a hex on the Death Dolls, we do also like to clarify we're not witches. There are a lot of witches in wrestling right now, and we're not trying to be witches. We're called the Hex because we will ruin your whole life. I want to touch on something you actually mentioned earlier, Denise, about filling a void, because that is something we talked about in 2020. I feel like throughout our careers, we have always looked for what is missing in wrestling right now, because you can't just be like everyone else. You know, we've always tried to, of course, play to our strengths and find things that are missing in wrestling. And I feel like in 2020, we really said to each other at one point, there are not really many women tag teams on the indies that are established. I think at the time it was like Sea Stars, and that might have been about it, because there wasn't a lot of indie tag teams in the US of females. And that was a huge part of why we're like, we should do this. We are actually friends. We actually want to tag together. All the tag teams we're seeing, some on TV too, but also especially on the indies, we're throwing together people. I think that's something that also draws people to us, is that they can feel that we want to be here and that we're actually having fun together. That's something people say to us when they see us in the ring is, you look like you're actually having fun out there. And we're like, that's because we are.
Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, Aaron Stevens joining us here. Sometimes we do these shows, and it's like, we had just enough time for that interview. And then you have a day like today where I think we just started and we're out of time. So we're going to get Aaron back here. The Crockett Cup is June 3rd and 4th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And we got a ways to go until then. So before the Crockett Cup actually takes place, we'll get you on again and maybe even do an entire Friday show. I would have preferred if you'd have been all day today, as opposed to what I talked about in the first two segments. So we'll do a full show next time, because there's a lot of stuff from Ohio Valley, which we talked about during the break, to WWE and NWA. But anyway, let's get some plugs in for your stuff. And next time we'll talk about heels as well, but we're still waiting for the info on the second season. So the floor is yours.
No, you can find me on Instagram at the Aaron Files, TheAaron Files. My parents called me Aaron, so it's Aron. Twitter, it's Aaron's Thoughts, ARONS Thoughts. And just be sure to follow NWA, see what's going on there. Crockett Cup, one of the most prestigious tag team tournament and the longest standing tag team tournament in wrestling. And this is not going to disappoint. Some of the stuff we got coming up, it's going to be really, really cool. So just keep watching NWA. We're on Power. On YouTube, that's Tuesdays at 6:05. We're live, but then it's on there the whole time. So give NWA a follow on YouTube. And I really, really want to come back. This was great.
26 years in wrestling, Aaron Stevens. 26 years.
Do I look it?
Actually, no. 40 years old. That's pretty impressive. And
skin regimen. We can talk about skin care next time I'm on.
You know, at my age, that'd be a good thing to talk about. But hey, we got to wrap it up, everybody. Aaron, thank you so much for doing the show today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back later on this weekend for subscribers, WrestlingObserver.com. We'll talk to you next time, Wrestling Observer Live.